everyone, my name is Sayali and I'm preschool facilitator. Stories are backbone of preschool education. There are different story techniques like book stories, puppet stories, imaginative stories, shadow stories, finger play stories, rhyme stories, action stories, etc. etc. So today I'm going to narrate a story which comes from the book What Will I Do with Baby O by Jane Carl, and the name of the story is Mr. Wiggle and Mr. Waggle. So before listening to a story, I want every one of y'all to be very attentive. So before listening to a story, we have to make our ears ready to listen to the story. Yes? Okay. So let's make our ears ready. Pull your ears down. Pull your ears up. Pull your ears sideways. Pull your ears down, down, down. Pull your ears up, up, up. Pull your ears sideways. Ah! Isn't it a good exercise for your ears? Yeah? Okay, so let's begin for the story. The name of the story is Mr. Wiggle and Mr. Waggle. Mr. Wiggle and Mr. Waggle were best of friends. And you know what? Mr. Waggle used to always copy Mr. Wiggle. Whatever Mr. Wiggle used to do, Mr. Waggle used to copy him. But Mr. Waggle was fine with it. He allowed Mr. Waggle to copy. He was okay with it. One day, what happened? Mr. Wiggle decided to build a house in a very different, colorful way. So Mr. Wiggle painted his door blue. He painted his windows yellow. And he painted his roof red. Wow! Mr. Wiggle's house looked very beautiful and nice. Mr. Waggle was amazed to see his house. And he said, even I want the same house like Mr. Wiggle. So Mr. Waggle also built a house. He painted his door blue. He painted his windows yellow, and for your surprise, he painted his roof also in red color. Now, Mr. Wiggle and Mr. Waggle lived in same identical house with blue doors, yellow windows, and red roof. Wow! Yay! It was evening time, the resting time. So, Mr. Wiggle opened his door, went inside and shut the door. So, Mr. Waggle, as you know, is to copy Mr. Wiggle. He also opened his door, went inside and shut the door. Now, Mr. Wiggle and Mr. Waggle are resting in their beautiful, colorful house. The very next day, it was morning time. Mr. Waggle was excited to meet Mr. Wiggle. He thought, I want to go to Mr. Wiggle's house and I want to tell about my house like it's so beautiful as his house. So he was very excited. So what did he do? He opened his door, he came outside and shut his door. So he was all ready to set to go to Mr. Wiggle's house. So what did he do? He climbed up the hill and down the hill and up the hill and down the hill and up the hill and down the hill and up the hill and down the hill. He was tired. He knocked at Mr. Wiggle's house. Knock, knock. No answer. Knock, knock. No answer again. Knock, knock, knock. No answer. Mr. Waggle was all sad. What did he do now? It was evening time. So he thought, I should call Mr. Wiggle. So he called Mr. Wiggle. Oh, Mr. Wiggle, are you at home? But again, no answer. And Mr. Waggle was all sad, and it was evening time. He had to go back home and rest. So he climbed up the mountain and down, and up the hill and down the hill, and up the hill and down the hill, and up the hill and down the hill, and up the hill and down the hill. He was tired. He said, okay, I should rest now. I'm very tired. So he opened his door, went inside, and shut the door. The very next day, it was morning time. Mr. Wiggle now wanted to meet Mr. Waggle. He thought of meeting Mr. Waggle because that day he had baked a yummy chocolate cake. Yummy chocolate cake. Who all like yummy chocolate cake? I just love chocolate cakes. Okay. So Mr. Wiggle was all excited to meet Mr. Waggle and share chocolate cake with him. So what did he do? He opened his door. He went inside. Did he went inside? He was already inside. He opened his door. He came outside and he shut the door. And he was all set with his chocolate cake. So what did he do? He went up the hill and down the hill and 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 finally reached at Mr. Wiggle's place. And he was shocked and surprised to see, did you see that Mr. Waggle has built the same house like me with blue doors, yellow windows and red roof? But he was very happy to tell Mr. Waggle that his house looked as beautiful as his house. And he was also very excited to share chocolate cake with Mr. Waggle. So he knocked his door. Knock, knock. No answer. Knock, knock. No answer again. Knock, knock, knock. No answer. Mr. Wiggle was sad. Mr. Wiggle thought of calling Mr. Waggle. Oh, Mr. Waggle, are you there at home? But still no answer. What did you think? Where Mr. Waggle has gone? I think probably he must have gone out for shopping or to buy vegetables. Let's see what happens. Mr. Wiggle, all alone with his chocolate cake, and no Mr. Waggle. Wanted to go back home because it was evening time. So he climbed up the mountain and down the mountain and up the mountain and down the mountain and up the mountain and down the mountain and up the mountain. Finally he reached his place. So now Mr. Wiggle and Mr. Waggle, both of them are in their beautiful, colorful house. The next day morning. The next day, it was morning time. Mr. Wiggle and Mr. Waggle decided to meet at the same time. Yay! They were very excited. Mr. Waggle was excited to tell Mr. Wiggle about his new house, and Mr. Wiggle was excited to share chocolate cake with Mr. Waggle. Yay! They were both excited. So what did they do? They opened the door. They came outside and shut the door. So ready? Both of them are ready. What did they do? They climbed up the hill and down the hill and 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 up the hill. Finally they met. They met each other. Yay! They met each other and they were so happy. They were jumping. They were dancing. They were rolling down. They were rolling up. They were rolling down. They were rolling up. They were very happy to see each other. Mr. Waggle said, Hey, Mr. Wiggle, thank you very much for coming. I was so excited to meet you since long. And I wanted to share you something that I built a new house which look as beautiful as your house. Mr. Wiggle said, "Oh, Mr. Waggle, even I was very excited to meet you and I have brought a yummy chocolate cake for you." "Oh, for me? Let's relish." So they both relished the yummy chocolate cake. Thank you, Mr. Wiggle. It's really very yummy. And they kept talking. They talked about the days they spent. They talked about the weeks they spent. And finally, it was evening time. They both had to go home to rest. But before leaving, they decided one thing. What did they decide? They decided that, like Mr. Waggle said, "Mr. Wiggle, can we share our phone numbers with each other? Because every time I have to climb up the hill and down the hill and up the hill and down the hill and up the hill and down the hill, and then you're not there and I'm really very sad. As might as I can call you before coming." So Mr. Wiggle said, "Oh yes, definitely." So they both shared their phone numbers. They waved to each other. They said goodbye to each other and hugged each other very tightly. And it was time to go. So they climbed up the hill and down the hill and up the hill and down the hill and up the hill and down the hill and up the hill and down the hill. Finally, they reached their houses. And what did they do? They opened the door, went inside, and shut the door. Now Mr. Wiggle and Mr. Waggle are resting in their beautiful house. Wow, they are resting. So did you like the story? So the story can be modified, like you can add various things that Mr. Waggle and Mr. Wiggle mailed each other. They wrote letters to each other. I really thank all the wonderful authors who share their stories with us. Think about all the joy they brought to the people around, and heartfelt thanks to Sonia for giving me such a wonderful platform to explore. Thank you very much, Sonia.